underway, so I expect we'll see her any minute now. And let's just call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the regular Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education meeting. Today is Monday, September 9th, and we will open this meeting at 4:03 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge our guests. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you all. Nice to be back with all of you in August after not having. Thank you. Whatever month it is now. We haven't seen you all for a couple months. It's nice to be back together.
Hi, everybody.
Paul, we can see you here. Thank you for joining us remotely. Hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, doing better. Thank you.
Sound good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just jump right in with the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda and the June 3rd minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Do we have any changes, comments?
It was. Yeah, she took care of it.
I did update. She found a couple of errors and I updated those so the official notes are correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Well, let's jump right into the personnel report.
All right, so right now we have 3 open positions, and we are recruiting again for the Dean of Instruction position with a Zoom interview scheduled for this Thursday. And then for the tutoring.
Babe.
Oh, everybody is not muted.
Yeah, I've taken one motherfucking pill, eaten right for 4 days. She can fuck right off on all this insulin and bullshit.
I think this is fucking awesome.
Oh, who's talking? I cannot find it.
Did you get that muted, Cheryl? Thank you. Okay. All right.
Danger of Zoom. We have a tutoring and testing specialist position that is going to interview probably the next week or so. And the workforce development support specialist position, we made an offer. That offer was not accepted, so it's being adjusted slightly and reposted.
Okay.
We hired a safety coordinator in August, Brandon Offwater, something. Is that right?
Offmeyer,
yes. He is a previous safety director from the Creamery, so great experience there. We're very excited to have him. And we hired a senior accountant and a payroll coordinator in June. So they've been fantastic to work with and are getting payroll and the finance department all up to speed. So I think that Sherry's got a great team now.
Wonderful.
And they're really fun to work with. So
That's great. That is great news.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Kyle?
Is the safety coordinator full-time?
Yes. And you used to work with the Creamery.
Yeah, we work for it.
Very nice. Small town. Okay. Well, do we have
Good choice.
excellent. Good enough.
I move to accept the consent agenda. I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Should have, well, before I ask for opposed. All right.
You'll
All right. I will. I'll get back to my point.
So keep you.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
Okay, the invitation for public comment at the beginning of the meeting is an opportunity for the public to comment on any issue within the jurisdiction of the Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education. Do we have any public comment tonight? In the room or online? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right into new business and we'll start with Board Policy 2300, Board Meeting Procedures. This is our first reading and I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Chair Bill, and nice seeing everybody sort of. So I'm glad you're all back. Sorry I missed the homecoming here, right? So we do have 2 new policies to look at. Well, they're not new policies, they're revisions of current policies. This is our, work we're doing in trying to get not only our policies updated with relevant language, but converted to a new format. So these two deal with the board. The board meeting procedures. This is a policy that would replace BP 101. I will say we haven't really changed things drastically despite the amount of red on there. You'll notice we've included 3 different versions of this, the marked up copy in red, so you can see where the changes are, a clean copy, and then the current BP. So those are the 3. Basically, with this one, we're sticking with, public meeting laws. And so this has been updated to include all of the relevant language for Oregon public meeting laws. It calls out different meetings, types of meetings that we can have, a regular board meeting, special board meetings, and what are some of the unique circumstances that occur for each one of those there. Also, you'll notice that most of the language is clarifying language or more explicit language, especially if you can look just, for example, at executive sessions, right? So we really called out the reasons under which we could have executive session and why that would occur. So that's basically what we're looking at here with these, not changing practice at all, how the board is expected to operate, still following Robert's Rules of Order as a guide. All of the other public meeting laws hold as well. Does highlight about public comment, and I think it's important to call out more explicit language around public comment and the board's not, the board being to receive public comment, but not necessarily comment on public comment during a board meeting. I think that's pretty clear to have that called out that way. The other thing I think and there's also other meeting decorum kind of language that's in there about how people are supposed to behave during a board meeting, and again, giving us reason in writing if we need to be able to remove someone from a board meeting if they were to become disruptive or something like that. It talks about speakers, and I think the other thing to point out is that it really highlights that those wishing to speak at a board meeting need to be recognized to speak by the board chair. And again, I think that's important to call out so that we don't end up with free-for-alls or whatever. We're lucky we haven't had to put any of this to test, right? Because of the makeup of the board and the dynamics right now, but you never know, right? So I think it's important to try to highlight this as much as we can. So this will be here for you to review. This is the first reading of it. Again, if you take a read through it and there are some things that strike you as not right or something you would want us to look at in more depth, let us know and we will before we bring it back. But we'll probably bring these back, barring anything unforeseen, next month for an action. So that's the first one there. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Paul on this? No? Okay, let's move on to the next one, Board Policy 2710, conflict of interest.
Yep, conflict of interest. Basically looks like we had some formatting issues with the PDF there. Sorry about that. Not really much different at all from our prior board policy, which was 105 on a conflict of interest. Basically just highlighting that a board member needs to notify the board when there is a potential conflict of interest, right? And then we'll proceed from there that way. I think that, it does call out that if we do have any questions, we certainly should seek advice from counsel regarding that. But the point is that we want to avoid any potential conflict of interest. Doesn't mean you necessarily always have to recuse yourself from the conversation, but it's important to let the board know and the public know in particular that there might be a potential conflict of interest with a board member in an item that might be before the board.
Okay. Do we have any questions about that one? No? All right. Then we will move on to item C, which is organizational, legal, and financial designations. And Sherry.
Yes, hi. So I have shared a document with you that basically, the majority of the changes are just the fiscal year. But there are a couple of changes that I would like to highlight and make sure that we talk about them, and then we'll ask for your approval. So under the authorized check signers, with Paul's approval, I'm asking for me to have signature authority to sign the checks. In the past, Kyra didn't have that signature authority, and the reason for it was that Kyra was a lot of time doing anything from issuing a document for payment, printing the check, and also signing it at the end. So for the separation of duties, it was more appropriate for her to not have that signature authority. But now that the business office is fully staffed, and we do have that separation of duties, considering that if a check is above $5,000, we have to have 2 signatures. Right now, we have 3 people who are authorized to sign. And we've been having in the past a situation that 2 of the signers were gone at the same time, and we have to keep the checks till a second person becomes available. Or if they were financial aid staff and the person in charge of student services wasn't appropriate for them to sign. So because of that, I'm asking for me to have signature authority so that I can sign checks, as well as some changes in the credit card that we have. We are requesting to increase the credit limit for one person who already has the credit card, and that is the executive director of Advancement and Foundation. And also for the director of Facilities and Safety, we are asking for a $5,000 credit card to be approved because of their functions. We, again, with Paul's blessing, we think this is appropriate. And just want to point out that these are also some of the changes that are on this document compared to the prior year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Sherry?
So before someone uses a credit card, they have to have authorization first before they can use it, correct?
So it depends what kind of activities they are going to use it, but anything that they put in on their credit card, they have to provide receipts, and we're going to make sure that the receipts are appropriate and all the activities are appropriate, and then we authorize them.
Okay.
Does
So
that-
it's not, yeah, it's not done beforehand.
No, we don't do it before. And it is not an exception for TBCC. Usually, before you give them a card, you would make sure that you,
Good, yeah.
yeah.
Anything else? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve the organizational, legal, and financial designations. Yes.
I have a question, I'm sorry. I just think there's a typo in here that this might be as good a time as any to address. 15, where it has authorized check signatures. It mentions 2 signatures of the following 6 individuals, but there's only 3 individuals mentioned. So it seems like the need to
Thank
revision.
you.
I'm trying to find it. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry, my bad. I missed that. So with me being added, so there's gonna be, actually, maybe I should take it back. So we are asking for these signatures by the title. And so these are the titles that we're getting approved. And then depending on who is in the position, we are making it basically that person. So the VP of instruction, because it's an interim position, right now they don't have signature authority. So with that, if I count again, make sure that I know how to count. So these 1, 2, 3, 4. So there should be 4, not 6. So if the math is wrong, but I'll fix it. If you're okay with me, change that afterward. That's
Sure.
okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So it would take 2 signatures of the 4 individuals?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the question.
So that sentence would then read 2 signatures of the following 4 individuals?
Yes, yes.
There's
But
only,
she's gonna add one.
there's only 3 listed.
So who's
going to be added to
We're adding her.
So,
She's
I'm
the-
Mr. Safety. You're the fourth one. Okay. Yes.
Oh, okay.
She's the CFO. Yeah. Okay. Good catch, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the organizational, legal, and financial designations as amended.
I move to approve the organization, finance, and legal designations.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Item D is selection of OCCTE Foundation Board member.
Well, thank you. Let me give a little bit of history here. And so if you all recall, last year we had a conversation about a regional CTE skills center. We had talked about the possibility of an economic development opportunity, in particular of the Beaver Elementary School, the old Beaver Elementary School, and converting that into a regional skills center. That facility is still not ready for serving in that capacity, although there still is a lot of interest in building out a regional skills center for Tillamook County that would serve the 3 high schools, and certainly TBCC would have a role in that. We do know that wherever that facility ends up, whether that be in Tillamook more centrally or down in Beaver at that site, that there's going to be some significant capital that has to be raised in order to rehab that facility, or any facility for that matter. A few years ago, Misty Wharton, superintendent down at Nestucca Valley High School, got together with a group of folks to put together a CTE foundation, basically looking at that point to serve as a fundraising arm for local CTE development for high school, for Nestucca High School. That 501c3 foundation has been repurposed, if you will, looking at ways to serve the entire county as we look for ways to develop more training opportunities and training facilities for students, whether that be a centralized facility like we talked about at rehabbing Beaver Elementary, or if that means upgrading any of our current 4 areas, the 3 high schools and TBCC areas for more training. So the Oregon Coastal CTE Foundation is that fundraising arm, if you will, for CTE in the area. I think the goal really is to provide means for training of our youth, not just high school students, but also these could be TBC students, depending. We know that we'll probably need to look at specializing different kinds of industries in different areas, right? We don't have the ability, and we don't need to duplicate efforts at the 3 high schools in TBCC, although we certainly want TBCC to have a role in continued education in the trades as students leave the high schools. So that's what this is about. I don't need an action today necessarily, unless somebody wants to do it, but basically, as we looked at using this nonprofit as a foundation for CTE education in Tillamook County, we've revisited the bylaws and decision-making within that group, and we have started a structure that involves myself and the 3 superintendents of the 3 school districts. We would like to have a board member from each one of those entities also serve on this foundation board, as well as a few community members to serve on that. The goal really is oversight, both fiscal oversight and direction for CTE education and training in the county, not wanting any one particular entity, the high schools or TBCC, to be driving the ship too much. We want this to be kind of a joint venture. I will say, though, that the Tillamook Education Consortium, which is really this same group, the 3 school districts and TBCC, we really are trying to work in unison and create pathways for students from high school to TBCC. I do think that all of the superintendents are on board with that. They also see TBCC as more of the overarching organizational agent, if you will, for CTE training in the county, because we do have jurisdiction countywide, and we also provide a higher level, or the ability to provide higher level training as well. So I wish I could give a little bit more about what might be the time commitment for this. I don't think it's going to be great initially. I think we'll probably meet every month or two for an hour or so, or meetings called as needed. But again, really the goal is, if somebody on the board feels like they're motivated by career and technical education and would like to help shape the direction of career and technical education for the county, I would say at a K-14 level, this would be an opportunity to be engaged in that work. So I'm happy to answer any questions we may have, or if somebody is interested and wants to nominate themselves or nominate somebody else, we certainly could bring somebody on board right now as well. So most of the meetings are well, at least so far, they have a virtual component to them also, and recognizing that it's a lot of drain on people's time.
How long has it been in place?
So so I'll tell you, the foundation's been in place, I think, for about 4 years. They haven't really done much. I think it was put in place with the hope of trying to grow into something bigger, and the opportunity never really presented itself until about a year ago, when we started really leveraging a lot through the consortium, the Tillamook Education Consortium, to bring some of this work along. We did get that $1 million planning grant. We have submitted to the state a $6 million grant proposal to serve as some seed money to build out some infrastructure for career technical education training in the county. We should know the end of the month whether or not we were successful in that grant. And we need a governing body to monitor, I think, that work, so that the money doesn't just get that we have a little bit more oversight around the directions that we're taking. So I would say, in this particular, we just this summer redid the bylaws and looked at wanting to create a different governing structure for this foundation. And again, I think, there's the potential that a lot of money is going to be coming this way through grants and potential other donations that I know some people are interested in. We just want a little bit more broad oversight over that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Paul? Is anybody immediately interested in this?
Everybody must be muted.
I'm just trying to think who was the smartest money spender of the whole crew.
Oh, I'm good at spending money.
I know.
Oh, smart. Wait.
Yes.
So perhaps we should think about it and take it up again at our board retreat.
Yes.
Let's do that, and I will see if I can't get together a little bit more specific information to bring back and have a little bit better idea about what our goals really are. I certainly, my apologies, should share out the bylaws and mission of the group and that kind of thing. So I'll make sure we have all of that before we make a decision.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you all for listening.
Well, it's exciting work.
Yeah.
It is good work, and I think the important thing is we're just trying to create some structure so that we're not duplicating efforts, and we really are meeting needs of both the students, but certainly industry as well. So there's some good synergy behind some of the work.
Great, thank you. Okay, then we can move on to item 5, and starting with SAO Student Services.
Up here.
Anywhere you like, you want to,
You
yeah.
can stand in the middle and
Just in the
we
middle.
can hear you better.
Remember to project.
Yeah, can I get next to you? I feel a little more comfortable with. Is
Sure.
that okay, Sheila? Hello, I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. Not sure if people here that don't know who I am. My name is Chris Began. I'm the enrollment navigator here at TBCC. Usually if you walk in and you take a hard left, you'll see my face. I'll be behind the front of the desk office. So start off with the SAOs. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what SAO means, right? Service area outcome. Mine happens to be, how can we make the undergrad application process easier for graduating high schoolers? So with that being said, within the last academic year, I was given the task of drafting a service area outcome based on my current position as the enrollment navigator here at TBCC. We discussed many ideas and issues regarding our high school dual enrollment students on applying after graduation. It may seem like an easy task, but with a high schooler, it can be overwhelming, at times to add another little, step in their life in general. So that was our main focus of how can we make this seamless? And so one of the issues that was mentioned was the application process for enrolling as an undergrad can be overwhelming, as I mentioned. So we thought of ways to streamline our undergraduate application process for graduating seniors. We know that we already have information, collected just because we've built them in the past as a dual credit student. So how do we use that information that we've collected? So we know that we have the information, and okay, so I'm all over here. I apologize. So how do we use that information? So we build them as an undergrad applicant prior to the students graduating from high school. So what that means is that once they're a dual credit student, we see them as a dual credit student. They're still in high school, they're not in college. With the information that we collect through that process, we're able to build them as a undergrad. So that eliminates the whole process of reapplying. So after the transfer of information from the high school counselors and the students have been billed as an applicant, we still found that the students were still applying on their own. So that's just going to be something that's going to happen. And that could be lack of, outreach, and that's something that we're planning on doing more of. Like I said, this is just within the last academic year, so there's still room for improvement. So as I said, there's some cracks in the process of making a seamless transition for high schoolers wanting to apply to TBCC. We plan to address this by introducing more outreach, by utilizing our advising team to collect and to distribute information to the students and the counselors. With that, we have our advising team works with the high schoolers, counselors. So, via email, via in person, we're trying to get information to them as much as possible and to get cooperation from counselors. And so at times, the transfer of information from the high school students, the information, there's been some hiccups due to just, the privacy of the student information. So we're working on that. The advisors are working on building and cultivating a more cooperative relationship with the counselors. So we can obtain that information and use that and build the students to make this whole process as seamless as possible. And also to, combat that type of, issue, we're gonna try to start earlier so that, there is space and time to address these concerns in regards to the transfer of student information. So with that being said, we're trucking along as, make this as smooth as possible for high school students to enroll at TBCC. You have a question?
So this is the first year that's just been.
Yeah, this is
and now
the
you're
first
starting.
academic year, yep, so we're taking all the information, what's been happening, what's been working, what hasn't been working, and just making adjustments.
So how many students have benefited from this?
I currently don't have the numbers, I wish I did,
Oh.
that would speak, more loudly than what I'm presenting, but, I could get those numbers for you. I mean, I'm even curious about, what has been, but like I said, this year, just because lack of outreach, students were applying on their own. So, with that.
They were applying, but they didn't need to because they were already in.
Exactly. So, yeah, so they were applying and that's, that has a lot to do with the outreach. So that's a key factor in, eliminating them having to do that.
Yeah. So I want to say the interesting work that we'll get to do then, Chris, is to figure out what's the data that we need, how do we measure the impact of the work that you've done? Like
Sure.
what was the measure before and how do we see the impact that you've had? Yeah.
Right.
We'll chart that, we'll bring that back in.
Yeah.
We'll see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious too, but like I said, it is just the last year, so it still needs to.
And part of what had been done is we'd get confusion and complaints because the students already exist and take classes with us. And so they wanna, whether they're coming here long-term or not, if they wanna take a class over summer before they go, they wanna just come register for math. Well, they've graduated high school, so they're no longer a high school student, but we don't have them as a degree seeker yet, and they're kind of in no man's land, and it's confusing. And so the idea had been, we kind of flip them or create them, so they can just come in, meet the coach and register, and that's it. They don't have to go to do this other process ahead of time. Because we've gotten many complaints that it was confusing and some of them didn't bother. So trying to make it easier for them, whether they, again, want to take one class, or come stay with us for a year or 2 years, what have you, so.
That's a great idea. Yeah, yeah. It
And
sounds
make it
like,
easier.
yeah, like we just need a communication plan.
Yes,
Right.
Yep.
That's it, that's it.
tell the students sooner when they go to register for spring classes in high school, Chris and I talked earlier, the coaches, as they go to get them registered, they can have that conversation then. So you're prepared now, you can take classes in summer or fall too, we've taken care of that. You can just continue registering, so.
That's great.
So we'll work on that next year.
And like I said too, the transfer of information from the student, was sort of an issue as well, getting it in a timely manner. So I think that, utilizing the advisors in-house at this high school, working with the counselors, they can get that information quicker.
Makes sense.
Do you talk to the sophomores like in the spring to tell them what's the possibilities are then in the fall, so they're thinking about it?
So that's different than what he's talking about, but yes, so the coaches will go to the high schools and to register all the students in the future terms. They're also working on orientation per term for the students for the first time taking either a college class at the high school or here. So yes, the coaches will be there and talk to them about the future as they start planning enrollment for the future year.
And are parents parents ever involved?
We're trying. Well, and this, it's something I was talking about earlier, this is the first year where our new student orientation for fall is next Tuesday. And the students from the high schools that are registered for our classes, so on our campus, we're inviting them and their parents to our orientation as if, you know, they're a traditional college student, which is the first time. So we're trying to get the folks to appreciate that this is college classes they're taking, get used to the campus and all of that.
Is it late afternoon or evening?
It's evening, it's 4 to 6, so, yeah, 4 to 7.
And feed them?
Seriously. Yeah, it's afternoon.
Have treats.
Yeah, and have food truck again.
Yeah, it's always.
Yeah.
Part of the conversation is food.
Works for me.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any more questions for Chris? Thanks for your work. Thanks for presenting to us.
Yeah,
Nice to meet
It was
you.
my pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item B, which is mission fulfillment and conversion rate.
So we're gonna do something a little different this year. If we'd had the retreat this morning, we would have spent some time, I would have given you a little intro, so I'm gonna take a little time, just a little bit of time, because I've been drilling Ron on, we've only got a little bit of time, so not to talk too much, but I'm gonna take a little bit of time.
I have book cards, I know exactly what.
You know exactly what you're gonna say. Perfect, I love it. So what you would have had in your packet is what we've always called our placemat, right? Our mission fulfillment indicators. You all have been around long enough to remember when we had like 28 of them, right? We don't have 28 anymore. We have 9. How brilliant is that, right? We have 9. But still in those, in our past retreats, it can be a bit of a slog, right? Because we walk through each one and we talk about not just the meaning of each of those metrics, but kind of the trend of each of them. So instead of doing that in an hour-long session, what we're going to do is we're going to cover one metric each board meeting and spread that out across the year. And as a part of those conversations, we're going to have a staff member or faculty member come in and talk about that metric and then talk about the work that they're doing to move that metric, right? To projects that they've got ongoing or have done in the past or are doing currently that impact that metric. And that's why Ron New is here, is to talk about his work around conversion rate. So I think that'll be, I won't say more interesting because my, presentation's always so interesting, but I think it'll be interesting. And it also, I hope, helps to situate the metrics within our institutional effectiveness diagram, right? Because we're not just measuring these metrics as they relate to our the highest level of our strategic plan, but each of these metrics connects to the work that's happening in each team, right? Chris was talking about his SAO, right? His SAO, which is around bringing students into the college, connects to our strategic priority, which is around student engagement, right? We have a strategic priority, which is at the highest level of the college, right? We have 5 strategic strategic priorities that's around student engagement. Well, his work, which is at the operational level, connects to it directly, and he has a specific project that connects to it. So we're always trying to make that alignment and to make those connections. And so that's what we're going to try to do at each of these, at each of the board meetings to try to illustrate that. Yeah. Okay, so today we're going to talk about conversion rate. So we can go to the next slide. Sure. Which is what I just said. So we can go to the next one. Yeah, we all have seen that. So conversion rate is about increasing the number of students that complete that application, right, which is online primarily, but then also make it all the way through the application and registration process and make it through the first week of class, right? Which might sound like, well, you complete the application, you register for classes, and you show up the first week, and then you're a student, right? It doesn't seem like a long and arduous process. And yet there are plenty of places in that trajectory where we lose students, right? And so this is a table of data, which is probably not interesting to you, but what it illustrates is, let's go to the chart, because everybody loves a chart, or at least I love a chart. I think what the chart illustrates is that historically we kind of flutter around 50% or so. And in the last 2 years, before this most recent year, we've been at about 57, 56% conversion rate. I like to give some of the credit for that increase from, historically we were at 50, 52, 50%. I like to give, and I think Rhoda gives some credit to that increase of 57, 56% to Chris, who happens to be here tonight. That's complete coincidence. But I think his focus on enrollment, on getting students not just to complete the application, but once they complete it, he's shepherding them through the process, accounts for some of that increase. But you'll notice that drop to 46% this last year, right? So what's that about? And Ron is here to talk about that. Now that we don't attribute to Chris.
We attribute that to Ron.
It's got a much more.
Is that an option?
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. So Ron, why don't you take it away?
Okay, so, is everybody clear on what the conversion rate is? Okay, so we know what the conversion rate is. Why is the conversion rate important to us here at TBCC? The conversion rate is our measure of how well we're taking care of our applicants. If our conversion rate is high, that means that our applicants are being effectively moved through the admissions process and starting their time in college. That means that we've done a good job of getting them through the door and ready for class. So, that's great. What happened? A big part of this conversion rate drop is due, in a word, to fraud. Across the state of Oregon, college fraud has increased dramatically. And we can see it just from watching our applications that come in. It's been a bit of a chore to keep up with. And there are, let me reset for a second here. So the number of fraudulent applications that we've caught and discarded before they even get to having an actual account here has increased several times what it was 2 years ago. And it's been a real problem just trying to keep up with it from an admission standpoint. A portion of these fraudulent applications are still making it through to be applicants, and they're going to our coaches, and then our coaches are catching them. This is where they start to add to our conversion rate problems, because they have applied, but they're never going to be students because we require that everybody actually prove their identity before they start registering for class. So they cause a problem for our conversion rate because they're applicants but never get registered. We have processes in place to stop them there before they start getting financial aid, getting registered for classes, and causing a whole other slew of problems that aren't even going to be part of this presentation.
Ron?
Yeah.
What is it? It looks like we all have the same question. Could you back up a little bit and tell us more about the meaning of the intention of the fraud? This is the first time hearing.
So I am actually going to touch on
Okay, but I don't
That's-
understand what's the purpose, what are they getting out of it?
What's their advantage?
So that's actually, believe it or not, that's actually on the next card. So, without any more delay, why is there fraud? What do people get out of fraudulently applying for college? And there's actually two primary things that people are after when they fraudulently apply to college. One, the big and obvious one that has been a big hot button around the state is financial aid fraud. A lot of students, or not students, there's two kinds of fraudsters that will apply. There are real people who have either stolen somebody else's identity or social security number to apply for financial aid in their name, drain their financial aid, and then abandon the college and move on to the next one. And then there's bots. A lot of these scammers send out bots to apply to various colleges, get registered for classes, and then that's the last time they ever touch anything until they get their financial aid. Fortunately, more and more schools are working to fight this, which is making it a little bit harder for those bots to get through. The unfortunate side effect is that they start having to get smarter. The other thing that comes up a lot, believe it or not, is college email addresses. This has come up a lot in the statewide registration and admissions groups. It actually was a topic in one of my Oregon registrar meetings. There's actually websites devoted to where you can go to get college email addresses. The reason for this is that a lot of services offer discounts if you have a .edu email address. And there's bordering on a black market for education email addresses. There are people that will claim an email address and then sell it to somebody else. And it's not just for the discounts. It also can give them access, depending on how the college is structured with their email, can give them access to college directories, which gives them the opportunity to defraud other students as well as employees. We've actually seen a lot of phishing happening here, taking over student emails and then attacking other students with more phishing. But that's beyond the scope of what I'm going to talk about. So it's that's the main reason. Are there any more questions about the reasoning behind?
So they're looking to get financial aid from FAFSA and the state? Do they ever get, I just looked at a whole lot of applications for scholarships. Do they get down that? Are they still?
Not here. We've gotten methods in place that have been very effective at stopping them from getting financial aid. But that comes after our hard stop comes after they become applicants. And that's why they're affecting our conversion rate, but not our financial aid applications. However, there are a lot of schools that have been, frankly, panicking a little bit. We see them in the statewide groups talking about all this financial aid fraud that they've caught after the first week of the term. They're trying to get these students out of the classes, trying to figure out if there's any way to recoup the money. It's been a major problem, especially the last 2 years. It's gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
Yes?
I would assume this doesn't hit only community colleges, that it also hits
Correct.
other. mostly
Four-year
higher ed.
colleges and universities have been on the same subject and talking about the same problems. My listservs are full of people sharing tips of how to avoid fraud, what we can do as colleges to repair all of this.
Community colleges are kind of a good target though, because we accept everyone and we make things so easy. We strategize, how can we make the application process easier? How can we facilitate it? And so they'll get through. Many schools, they never have to meet anyone. They can apply online and just go ahead and get registered in classes.
Right.
And they were filling classes at Mount Hood and Lane and some of the other schools, fraudulently filling them. So the schools were hiring more faculty and opening more sections, and they come to find out none of them are real people. So they start school, get refunds, and they go to a bunch of empty classes. So the fact that we're so small and require in-person and or Zoom with ID meetings from everybody is what is saved us, frankly.
Plus taking
The
away
joy of-
slots for the real students.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Taking time and.
We very much owe our advisors for saving us from a lot of financial aid.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The darker side of higher education.
Well,
Uh,
it's not the application, it's not the institution, it's hitting it, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think the real percentage is?
I did an adjustment at one point. I'm not sure how accurate it is. I do think that our conversion rate has fallen, our true conversion rate, just not nearly this much. I think we're closer to somewhere between 50 to 54%.
Do you remember what the increase, there was a huge increase in the percentage of applicants. I mean, it was like 45% more applications than prior years. I don't remember, it was crazy. It's just.
When was
And
that?
I do want to point
This
out
year?
that was this,
Yes.
yeah, we checked it, and it was around 40% more applications, and that is not including the ones that I discarded before they even became applicants.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
I've discarded so many applications that I've lost count of how many, and that is only the ones that I know for an absolute fact are fraud.
How do you know?
So there's a few
Red flag.
things. It depends on who's attacking, but there's most of them have some kind of sign. There were a slew of them from Texas that all came in kind of at once with a very specific format of email address. It would be first name, last name, date of birth at outlook.com. There was another batch that was all the similar format from gmail.com. What I'll do is I'll look for anything that's a red flag for me. If somebody, like today, we had somebody that applied as a dual credit high school student at Tillamook High School, except based on their date of birth, they were 25 and living in Portland.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, things that just absolutely don't make any sense. I will call them or email them or something, and then usually what happens is the phone will say, you know, the caller you've called or the number you've dialed is not in service. Or I'll get an email back from the mailer daemon that says this email can't be found. Or somebody will answer and say, I have no idea who that is. Because that's a lot of these attacks, for some reason, they'll pick a random phone number, email address, whatever. They'll say, okay, Oregon is 503, Tillamook is 801, 457, or whatever, and then a random set of 4 numbers. So it looks like there's somebody from the area, but it's either somebody else's phone number or a phone number that doesn't exist. And if there's no viable contact information, then it's not really a valid application. So we kick those out. Or if I call them and I say, hey, I see you live in Nevada.
Are you moving to Tillamook?
Are you moving to Oregon? Do you have, we don't have an online program in the people learning community that you've applied for. And they say, okay, what do you have online? And I say, well, we have business. And they say, okay, I'll do that. And then the next question is, when can they get their financial data?
Of course.
Mildly suspicious.
Have you rejected any applications that were legitimate?
Not to my knowledge. No one that I've rejected has called in to say, hey, what happened to my application? In fact, we don't want to create a barrier by just throwing out anybody that doesn't seem right. So I do outreach every single one that I reject, which does take up some time, but fortunately it's usually pretty quick when the phone goes to nothing. I did have one that I was 99% sure was fraud because it had that same kind of email. It was first name, last name, date of birth. Now, it's very suspicious to put that much PII in your email address. It's odd. Turns out it was a high school student that didn't know any better. She answered the phone, we talked about her application, and we got her set up. Of all of the suspicious ones I've looked into, that's been the only one that was legitimate.
Like a detective.
Only when it becomes necessary. Does anybody have any more questions on that before we move on to the next part? Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So now that we know what it is, why it's important, and how much we struggle with the fraud that's tanked it so much further than it should be, what are we doing about it? So right now, I'm working with our success coaches and with our enrollment navigator to field test a new report. We were using a spreadsheet to track new and incoming students. And there's just too many opportunities for something to fall off. Too many people are touching it. There's a lot of problems that can arise. So now we're doing a report that pulls automatically directly from Genzabar. So there's no chance of losing any information that way. This report is going to do 2 things for us. One is all students who have applied for the current term and any term in the future will be pulled, and the coaches will be able to look at it and see what stage they're in, if they're applicants, if they've gotten all the way to registration, and they'll know exactly where all of their students are. The other part is that it also pulls all students who applied for a previous term and didn't make it to the registration and registered stages. So anybody that said that they were possibly going to come for a future term, we put them in a stage called deferring the future term. We know that they are still interested, but they're not coming right now. If they didn't attend, if maybe they made it to stage, to the registration stage, but then maybe they got a little bit too afraid of the idea of college, or maybe their work schedule changed and they're just not ready, they move to non-attending. All of those students for the previous term will stay on the report so that we can keep track of them for outreach. So we've improved our tracking to just kind of close up some holes and make sure that everything is moving as smoothly as it can. If the testing goes well, then we'll have something that'll be great. If the testing doesn't go well, we have a base to move forward from and adjust our processes. Now, the next piece is our enrollment navigator. You've just met him, so I'll stop saying enrollment navigator. Chris is reaching out to students each term. This is going to be reaching out to non-attending students each term to invite them to complete the admissions process and get into classes. We also have a new student support specialist, Maria Leos. Maria is fantastic. She works with Chris to greet students at the front desk, answer questions. She's also bilingual, which is a tremendous help. We can be as friendly and welcoming as we want. We can do everything that we can to try to make sure that everybody knows that they're welcome here. But there's really no substitute to having somebody that speaks the native language of our new applicants. That's just a fact.
Ron, is that the Maria who graduated last year and gave a speech?
Yes.
Good,
Oh, wow.
nice.
Yes. She's fantastic.
Good.
Also, Maria regularly works through the TBCC application with students. Students come in, they say, hey, I'm interested in college, what can I do? And she'll take them out to our kiosks here by the door and walk them through the application. Here's how you get the next step in. And this is really important, not just because it's helping them with the application, it's getting them used to the idea that we're here to help you. Maria is a very kind, welcoming, and I had another adjective, but it's a synonym of what I've already said. She's very warm and welcoming for our students, and it's been a delight to work with her and have her here. It makes the whole process seem a lot less daunting, a lot less scary, and students who aren't stressed and afraid are much less likely to drop off of the process at any point. And that's going to help our conversion rate as well. Now, we also have some fraud procedures on the horizon. We're working on a few different ideas. They're still in the planning stages, but we're trying to figure out exactly how we can deal with the fraudulent applications that make it past that original screening that I mentioned before, that Chris and I do, and make it to the success coaches. If we determine that they're fraudulent, they really shouldn't be counted towards our conversion rate, because that's not fair to the school. So how do we do that? That's the next conversation that we're having. What do we do with those? Because we don't necessarily want to delete their accounts, because then we lose track of them entirely. But we also don't want them to count against us. This might end up being purging them entirely from our system to say, okay, this isn't a real person, or this isn't somebody that's really going to go to school here. Get rid of them, or it might just be flagging them in some way. We don't necessarily want to just have a giant fraud on this account, but but we do need to come up with something. We've also started talks about an application fee, which pluses and minuses. An application fee would thwart bots, because bots don't generally have money. It's also less likely to get real people in. It's still possible, but real people are usually going to look at this and say, oh, $25 application fee. There's, this other college has free applications. I'll just go do that. But there's also the concern of equity and creating barriers for students in our community, real people who want to get into college, want to have a better life, and we don't want to create a barrier for them either. So this is something that we're going to have to talk through very thoroughly and consider all of the angles before we do it. One idea that was tossed out that I really like is not a 100% a solution if somebody doesn't have the money, but is to use that, whatever the fee is that we come up with, count towards tuition of the first term.
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to do this, it would be important to have some sort of method for a waiver for the fee, but I'm not quite sure what that'll look like yet.
Ron? I was thinking it could be an electronic application fee, refundable when the person is accepted and, enrolls, when you know that they're a real person, it's just refundable. But also the waiver could be for local people, if people just want to come apply in person.
Or you could have a code if they've already met you in person or been the high school student, you have like a coupon code when you register.
These are great ideas. Once we look into how to attach an application fee to the application, I think we'll have a better idea of which of these we'll be able to do. We can definitely not charge anybody who comes in person. That's the easiest for,
And they would encourage.
for locals. That's a good point. That's a good point too. It'd be great to get them here on campus where they can see us and get used to being here. I don't know if there's an option for a discount code, but if there is, that would solve a lot of the problems with setting it up. But I
This would be
think
a fun activity for the equity links tool.
I think once we get to that point, it'll be a joint venture between student services and the business office to get that set up. And that's all of my presentation. Does anybody have any more questions?
Thank you for opening our
Thank you.
my eyes to this. I was not aware of the fraud aspect.
It's something that doesn't come up as much outside of admission circles and financial aid.
How long has this been going on? When did you what year did you first realize something weird is going on?
So we had odd applications periodically. I actually started here as the registrar specialist in 2021. And we already had a little bit of oddities here and there, but nothing too concerning. It was actually, I want to say about a year and a half ago. It was 2023, late 2022. Started seeing that there were a lot more applications, a lot more suspicious applications. And that was around the same time we started hearing more from other schools saying, hey, something's weird's happening here. We're not really sure what's going on, but we had some more financial aid fraud this year than we usually have. Of course, fortunately for us, by that time, we had already started requiring everybody meet with a coach before they get registered. So we didn't notice, honestly, we didn't notice quite as early as the rest of the schools did because we weren't losing that financial aid money. But I would say a year to a year and a half ago is when we really noticed that our fraudulent applications rather, were getting out of hand.
Well, the bad actors never sleep.
They never
Really don't.
stop.
They're going after senior citizens too.
That's
right.
Because
We almost got it this summer and it got further into the computer and I realized, okay, this is
not right.
And Wells Fargo Bank called on the other phone and said, stop. And it was horrible, but we got it stopped.
I got a call allegedly from a credit agency the other day that was, aside from the weird sounds of dishes being washed in the background. They did a pretty good job. Unfortunately, they're getting better.
Yeah.
And I used to work at the electronics store in town. I've heard so much about it. And we've actually stopped people from getting scammed there to say, okay, you've already sent them this much money. They're just going to keep asking for more money. It's unfortunate, but it's something that's going to keep getting worse. They're going to keep getting better at it, and it's going to be up to us to stay a step ahead of them. As much as I want to say that we'll beat them and they'll go away, I'm not nearly that delusional.
Makes you very untrusting because I'm blocking everything.
Yeah.
No, and it's unfortunate because if we get too untrusting, we end up putting up an unintentional barrier for our students. We end up creating a problem that wasn't there before we fixed the old problem. And that's the line that we're going to have to walk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Okay, we will move on to item C, which is the ASTBCC report with Piper. Are you the president this year? Congratulations.
Assumed.
Okay.
We haven't had an election yet, but fingers crossed. But we haven't really had much of a student government meeting because everyone that was on our team graduated. So the summer's been just very quiet, but our previous PR person, Dahlia, my best friend, who was our assumed VP, we were invited to go to this leadership conference down at Western Oregon University. And that's where I got this cool little notebook. But it was really nice because we all went down with a bunch of other community colleges in Oregon, like Mount Hood and Lane and then Benton, and they're so much larger than our school. So they had teams of 10 people, and they had these super titles like junior and senior PR. I'm like, wow, we've got just one of everyone. They're just the best people that have been voted in long ago, and they have these super voting processes. I'm like, we just send out a poll to everyone and anyone can vote in. But it was just a really nice experience to see how other schools treat their student government and how other voting processes go along, and just seeing more of the government side of student government and just learning different ways to go about our ASTBC little life and having events and going to little workshops. And Dolly and I split up and we're gonna go to all these little workshops, we're gonna take all these notes, and we're just gonna bring it back. But ultimately, it just kind of felt like common knowledge. If you want people to go to your event, just be nice. Be welcoming. Maybe have some food there. But it was just nice stuff. But I feel like I got the most from just networking with other people and learning how other people treated their people and how they went around with the other students that aren't involved in the government. And I feel like I could have just been in a room with all these other people in school in the little government, and I feel like I could learn more from what their advisors were teaching us. But we got lots of good notes in, and it was just, I just want to say it's a good experience. It was just so fun going around Western Oregon campus, and everyone was so nice. And everyone is so different because they're from these big little cities, and we're just from little small town Tillamook, and there's just two of us. But the bigger schools had their advisors, and there's specific student government advisors. I'm like, we've got Clara, but she didn't go with us because she's got better things to do. But Dolly and I,
did she know she was invited?
I don't know. We're here, and the other schools are like, yeah, this is a big deal to us. We've already gone to a conference way over in blah 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 blah, and we're like, oh, we're just here. There's a conference going in November that's in California. And a bunch of our other little schools were like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to be taking some of our budget out, but we think it's going to be very beneficial. And I'm like, I think we've got $20 in our account. And all these other schools have these amazing events. Some schools had a petting zoo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we can't even have a pizza party because we can't afford the licensing to be able to advertise food. So it was just kind of interesting to see how other people on student governments got paid a lot more than us. Like some people were like $200 a week, and they had like full-time positions at the school. Like they had their own room. And I'm like, sometimes we get the like the food pantry room. Sometimes we get that table like once a week sometimes. But it was just so interesting to see how like they get their own room, they get their own desks, and they're like full-time jobs. They just sit there and wait for anything to happen, and they're ready to tackle it. And they just plan events like all day long. And remembering what our team did, we would meet at Denny's because that's like the only time we could meet because everyone was working these crazy schedules. And so we'd meet at Denny's at like 9 p.m. and just plan out an event. And we're like, okay. But these other people, they're just working all the time. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense. You guys have petting zoos because we've got the entire month to plan it out. But it was just so rewarding to just go and take in what everyone else has. I'm like, okay, well, that's how they can do it at their school. But trying to translate it back on how we can go about our small schools events. Like, I thought the petting zoo was awesome, clearly. But other schools got a pie eating contest. That was cool. And that was a good, successful event for us. Like, we got good turnout, but we might not have had 10,000 people show up because we don't have 10,000 people. But just even getting 5 people to our event, that's good to us. So just kind of translating everything like, okay, just scaling it back. But it was really fun, and I hope that we're able to go to more conferences because it was just so nice, just network with other schools and get those connections. Like, I've exchanged so many social media handles with other people in other schools, and I'm like, wow, I'm like besties with the vice principal of Lane's now. Like, wow. I'm like, we should all have a big meeting and talk about, and we all have this giant email group chat now, and we're just constantly exchanging information, and it's been so fun and so rewarding, and I'm so glad we went. So
well, it sounds like you were really inspired by
many
just
awesome
to this.
It was so fun.
So I hope you'll be able to spread the joy to some other students.
I know. I'm like, I can't be passionate about this.
Even though we're small, that doesn't mean everything.
We're small, but we're mighty.
There you go.
I know. Because I feel like not elected, I didn't need any of this.
Thank you very much. That was a very fun report.
Yes.
And I really appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yes.
I hope you can put together a petting zoo. We'll all come.
I know, I'm gonna need like single donations for everyone. That's like. Bring your animals here so we can have them here. Yeah, Jason's not like that.
Jason may have something to say about that petting zoo. I know somebody's got to clean up after all of that, right?
You're next door to the fairground.
That's where we gotta be.
Oh, so now there's an idea. We rent out the fairgrounds and do the petting zoo over there.
Yeah, see, you got it.
Yeah.
We've got a fence for.
Yeah.
Wait, look, I have a petting zoo in my home.
Oh,
There's your first contribution.
No,
That sounded like a volunteer to me.
I know.
You're hired.
So
It's
Shannon,
my Liza.
Mike, from the top of the table, I can't see what you're holding.
Honey,
I thought that was dinner.
it's a bunny. Oh, you scared her. How rude.
That was dinner. That's great.
Dinner.
Thanks again, Piper. Thanks again, Piper.
Awesome.
We'll move into the construction update.
I'm gonna try to borrow some of that energy from Piper. So we are under construction, which is great news. So last time we met, we were just entering into contract with Kirby Nagelhout. We're off and running, as you can see next door. We're busily digging and filling and getting ready for our geopiers or our pylons that go into the ground that start next week. So a lot of progress there. No, you can hit this. So that was us. We had our groundbreaking ceremony on the 21st. When off and running, we did have some permitting delays in July from the state of Oregon. We got out of local zoning and then had a little bit of a hang up with DEQ on a excavation permit, which did cause a little bit of delay in July. But we're through that. August and into September, we're trying to make up a little bit of time for those delays, but things are now going well. We have a couple new slides for you, a couple new elevations. You've seen some of these, but we do have a few updates. Some of these if you just want to flip through them. This is our new parking map. So one of the big changes, as you noticed, parking on campus has definitely changed. So we're now entering off of 3rd Street, coming through the fairgrounds down Poop Lane. Which is the real name. That is the real legal name. That is where our primary focus is student parking as well as guest parking. Staff and faculty are now parking on the parking lot to the east of the PRI building. We brought in gravel and graveled that lot, and that will be our permanent parking home during construction for staff and faculty.
It's part of our wellness program.
It is. Everyone's getting a few more steps in, which is always good. That is our kind of our drawing of our plaza. This is new. This is our new solar pavilion. So this design was just finalized. So this is in the plaza. This is part of our state regulation is 1.5% of our budget is used for renewable energy. That also covers the structure that holds it. So this pavilion is solar paneled on the top, which will allow folks to kind of get together, get out of the weather. And it's located right next to our bus stop that will match, which you can see on the next slide.
What will it power?
So it'll be hooked to, a lot of it will be driving the lighting in the plaza itself. So our exterior element lighting, the plaza security lighting. And then our bus stop will be our new bus stop off of the plaza. So if there's multiple people waiting, they have, some cover to get out of the weather. So that's kind of a fun new design. It'll be exciting to see it come together. More renderings of the plaza. And then our interior renderings, which I believe we had those up at our last board meeting, but these show some of the interior views of the finished space, which is kind of nice to see.
Is it tile or carpet?
So on the main floor is tile, and then on the second floor is carpet. And then our event center. So this is, and that completes slides on HEB. Is there any questions on the HEB project? So there is a lot going on, but for the most of the update is we're under construction and we look forward to getting out of the ground. So we're currently rushing to get as much infrastructure in the ground before the wet weather. So that is the biggest focus on that project. So big news on the CIT building. We just finalized our drawings for CIT. They've been finalized. We just went to zoning and planning review with the city of Tillamook. We've also are working with the EDA. Since that project is partially funded by the EDA, everything has to be reviewed by them. So the good news is we're getting really close to being out for bid. And we'll be close to getting started on that remodel. So this is the new front elevation that is off of 3rd Street. We were able to redo some of the frontage, kind of update a little bit, have the matching copper roof so that we can tie the buildings into each other to give it that campus feel. And then on the inside, we do have a large flex lab, and then a lot of our specific technologies like welding, millwright and so forth will all be in the kind of the general facility in the middle of the building. And on the entryway, there's lockers as well as 2 offices for staff.
And if I could, can I comment a little bit about this, Jason? Yeah, we've gone back and forth a little bit. It's why we're behind on building this remodeling CIT. we do feel we've landed on the most effective footprint inside the building for us, given what we want to be able to accomplish. That flex lab that's down there, it's on the south side of the building there. That is going to be a room that can be used for a number of classroom kind of activities, but in particular, we wanted to be able to house in there our electrical programs. Currently that's the largest of our apprenticeship programs, and we really wanted to meet the needs of local industry by having some dedicated training space for that and some dedicated equipment for that as well. We'll be looking to build out in there some training, not only for our electrical controls and things like that, but also start looking at equipment that would allow us to start getting into some advanced manufacturing automation that might be in there, in particular as it's around food and beverage manufacturing and advanced wood products. We want to be able to have a foundation of some basic automation and programming around robotics and things like that to facilitate that area. So I really look forward to that. We have no doubt that you have to realize that when this first budget was put together for construction, it was put together pre-COVID. COVID numbers and construction costs are still 30 to 35% or more. And I think that actually our estimate was even low for the day when we put a guess on what we thought this might cost to renovate. The good news is that we've been in conversation with EDA, who's the sharing half of the cost of construction on this building with us, and they have indicated that it's not out of the realm of possibility. In fact, probably likely that we could get additional funding for this. Again, that would be split 50-50 with EDA. It's a 1-for-1 match. So we know that we're going to come in over budget, so to speak, with this, but we certainly are going to offset some of that cost by seeking additional funds from the EDA. I think with that, we just have to move forward with it. It's going to be great space, and I think the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to get. So we'll move forward with it. But I was going to talk to you a little bit about this at the retreat today. That this will be something. I mean, this is why you all have been fiscally conservative over the past several years, and we do have a reasonable amount of funds that we can use for projects like this. So we'll know more. What do you think, Jason? Probably in a month or so, we get maybe, or a little bit longer than that, we'll be able to get an idea of what the cost is, and then we can go back to the EDA with some requests for budget augmentation.
Yeah, we're hopeful to have this out for bidding towards the end of October. And since it's a remodel, it's very difficult to do price modeling. So we have done some modeling, but I think truly we have to get it out to bid to get accurate numbers. And unfortunately with the EDA, we can't just send it out to bid. It has to be reviewed and go through a specific process to ensure that it's a fair bidding process. The EDA is involved in that whole timeline before it goes out, which does add some time. But I'm pretty hopeful by the end of October, we'll have it out for some solid bids.
Good. And I think that I really like the work that's been done on some of the designs. We'll get some better renderings once we're a little bit further along, but it really will tie into our other 3 buildings that we'll have with HEB, PRI, and our main campus. So I think that's really going to look nice as well.
So that's exciting news on the CIT. Any questions I could answer for you?
So with the delays that we had in July, are we pretty much on track time-wise?
We are. We still anticipate, we're hopeful for probably September into September of 25. We were talking August to September in the beginning. I think it will probably be September. It depends on how wet on the season we have. We have delays built in for weather, so a lot of that. We're really hopeful for a nice dry fall. But that's gonna be the big thing on kind of, our timeline. It could push us into October. We're hopeful it doesn't. Right now, it looks good for September, but it's a little early to tell. We're still getting out of the ground, which is our kind of the stressful time of the project because we're in our unforeseen area, which we did find unusable soil. So we're currently having to excavate the site and import, usable compactable soils, which is why we had such a good contingency, which is good news. But that all that together kind of just adds time. But we're getting through some of those unforeseens, which is positive. That way, once we get out of the ground, we know a lot more detail for timeline.
What makes soil unusable?
A lot. So when we started digging, we did find a lot of garbage under the top 12 inches that you can't see.
We're guessing a county dump at some point, maybe?
So we had a lot of railroad ties, old abandoned conduit and just stuff. Kind of like you'd expect to find in old land. That was the first problem. Then as we went deeper, we found what they do is when they excavate the ground, they'll send the soil out to be tested, and a lot of it has to do with compaction. It's all basically, can we layer that soil in a way that it supports the building? And a lot of that top 24 to 36 inches had too much of a clay composite, which we did know from core sampling, but it turned out to be a higher percentage than was anticipated. And so what happens is we have to dig all that out and then bring in gravel. Different types of gravel and fines that we know we can compact and get the correct compaction, then put the building in the parking lot on top.
Okay.
And that's what they're just finishing up right now. They're just finished up digging out the entire parking lot and building it up, and the building pad will be complete this week. And then next week they'll come in and we have 137 pylons that will get drilled. And those will go down 20 to 24 feet. And those will they drill those all throughout the footing of the building. And then we're kind of out of the ground, which is good news. Because right now is where we're just running, we're digging and finding things that weren't expected.
Yeah, I think we'll have some more uncertainty next week as they start digging. I mean, that's going to be something, I think, a little entertainment to come sit and watch, but, digging that much, we'll get a sense again about, issues we might run into a little bit deeper in the soil profile. But we're pretty sure that can be, again, they do use gravel again, don't they, Jason, for that?
Yes, yeah. It's all different sizes of gravel that they layer it to accomplish the compaction.
And did you give us the timeline for the CIT building?
So the CIT building, once we can get approval to start, which is an EDA hurdle, we anticipate that remodel being roughly 6 to 9 months. So we're really hopeful that CIT should be coming online right around the same time HEB, is coming online. So if not a little bit ahead of it, which is exciting. So then, we can start moving some of those programs over to that building.
That's great.
Yeah. I think our goal for both of those buildings, Mary Faith, would be to move, well, certainly with HEB, we'll move administrative personnel before we move programs over, because I think we can do that. But probably over that winter intercession between fall of 2025 and spring of 2026 is when we'll transition over the academic program. So it would be really, hopefully in a year from this coming winter, we'll be able to have all of our instruction now in those buildings.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It is very exciting.
It's a big project. It's fun seeing it come out of the ground, but it sometimes me personally, you forget how big of a project this is, especially HEB. We are probably one of the biggest projects Tillamook County's seen in a while.
Your new safety manager has really great construction experience.
He does. He's very, very helpful. Yes, we are excited. I and we are very excited to have him on board. It allows me to put safety and security all the way back up at number one where it belongs, where I was, having to wear quite a few hats there, and my concern was not having that as number one, and Brandon is definitely helping.
One of having him involved early is just super valuable, but I have to share a fun story since it's coming. A few months before we opened the new visitor center for the creamery, we kept thinking about public building. It's still, it's big, it's new, the design was so important, from a marketing standpoint. But Brandon had the most creative idea. He said, we need to kid-proof this building and really look at it from a child's perspective. And we grabbed 3 families with children from 4 to college age and fed them a whole bunch of ice cream. Go be bad and make a list and look for those places that, and the construction guys were all just watching, had hard hats on, just laughing at the whole thing. They found things that you would not have imagined. We changed stuff last minute. My granddaughter reached up to one of those giant pictures and pulled it out of the wall like 2 feet. It was only stuck in one place. Like there was so many things. And then some major stuff that, like if you're holding a child by the hand and you walk down the step, look at where their head is. There was like a 90-degree angle on a piece of metal. Like they were just so thoughtful. So anyway, be ready for some creative fun too.
We're super excited.
Wow.
Well, at various places along the construction journey, we would love to have I'm speaking for the whole board now. I personally would love to have construction tours.
Absolutely. We're in the middle of planning that as the project moves forward. I'm sure we'll try to have some board meetings with tours built in.
Good.
My goal is to have tours set up for staff, faculty, and board members as the building comes out of the ground. We'll all put our hard hats on and cruise over there and check it out.
Great.
It's going to be super exciting.
Great.
I mean, we do have the live video feed that IT and Jason's department worked on putting in. I don't know if you all have seen that yet. We'll make sure we get you that link, but it's kind of fun to see the bird's eye view of the construction going on there.
Yeah, and I think it's on the webpage.
It is, yeah, on the health ed building site. So if you tab over, you can see it links right to YouTube, and
finding it for us.
we'll do some kind of fun video time lapse over
There it is.
the duration. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
That's
super
a
fun.
great
So
idea.
during the day, if you eat lunch and you want to see what's going on, you can
That
just
is cool.
start it up.
Just go to the
Nice.
main site about TBCC and then healthcare education building.
Great.
They haven't
Thank you.
hit me up for one for CIT yet.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
Perfect.
Anything else for Jason? Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the financial report.
So I'm gonna start my, my report with, tying it to the funds, stuff that we're talking about a minute ago. And I'm gonna talk about the financial aspect of the project. So as you already know, just doing a recap, we had a budget of almost $23 million for this project. 15 was coming from the bond, and the other 8 was supposed to be a bond match from the state. So the way that $8 million work is that every time that we spend $1, we bill half of it to the state. So we started this fiscal year with having a little bit over $14 million of that $15 million that we started with. And also, so far, we have billed and received money for about $500,000 from that $8 million. There is another outstanding bill that actually today I noticed that I checked on the LGIP account. I noticed that they paid us, but is not in any of the stuff that I am looking at. So we received $500,000 from that. Normally, usually with the balance that we had, we usually receive about $60,000 of interest on that money. That just a rough distribution is that we can spend 80% of that interest on that project as well. And with that, I'm gonna go to the July financial report. There isn't much activity in the accounts because July is pretty much quiet. We are not receiving any money from the state. We're not very active on the tuition collection because we only have the summer term going on. And in this year, this specific July of this year, as you will see on the report, I'm not listing anything for tuition. Usually, historically, we have something about $75,000-$80,000 of summer tuition. But because of all the staffing and training and cleaning ups that needed to happen, what is happening is that the tuition is in a account that actually, as of before I came to this meeting, we moved it, but it's not reflected in this report. But basically, the tuition for the summer was sitting in an account in the prior fiscal year. So we had to move it to a deferred account, and then so that it goes onto the balance sheet and it's reflected as a deferred revenue on the balance sheet. And then after this step, it's a quick step of moving the revenue into the current fiscal year that we are in. We are still busy cleaning up the accounts. As again, a recap. I started in November of last year. I had to start with putting the budget so that the budget managers know what they are doing, run the audit and a lot of other things that needed immediate attention. So the last couple of months, finally, my focus has been on cleaning up whatever was happening in the fiscal year 24. A lot of it is cleaned. By cleaned, I mean that there are so many times that the revenue has not been booked in a specific account that it belonged to, because at the time we didn't have enough supervision and knowledge in the office to be able to recognize where it needs to go. Or, for example, the other thing that, without going to too much accounting jargon, when a revenue is happening, it requires two journal entries. One is to say, because we are accrual based in the college, there is one entry that says, okay, we realized this much money and now we are billing, but usually it takes at least a few weeks for us to actually receive the revenue to come in. And a lot of times I've noticed that these two entries that were moving the funds and revenues from one place to another place, only half was done. Sometimes this half, sometimes that half, but it was half. So we are trying to do a bunch of those cleaning ups, but we made a lot of progress and a lot of improvements, and especially now that the office is fully staffed. The payroll, I call it payroll nightmare, is over.
Oh,
yes. So if you'd like, I can give you a quick recap about that. Okay, sure. So the payroll, for a long time, we were blaming J1. J1 is not easy. James Zabal is not that easy to use. But the other problem that we had was that we were starting a process, but then we were omitting some steps, or we would stop much sooner than we should have stopped. So that caused all the problems that when I was new, I was thinking that, okay, the payroll module is not talking to financial module. And this is what I reported when I was very new here to this body. Now that I know more, that wasn't the issue. The issue was and very justifiable with all the turnovers and not having good trainings and all of that. But now we are, in terms of compliance, we do all our reportings, all our payments. And before, the focus was to make sure that the employees are being paid, which is very important. But now we're making sure that the employees are paid the right amount, and we do all this other steps that have to happen in terms of compliance and pay our payables in time. So that piece is also happening. And the last two payrolls, basically J1 was so great because we knew what we needed to do, and everything is there. Yeah. Yes, and I'm happy to go in more details or answer any questions if you want me to stop, if you have any questions. Okay, so that's another piece. The other thing that I am working on these days is that a couple of years ago, a few years ago, actually I was meeting with Breda today to talk about this. The foundation accounts have been moved out of J1 books to completely be in having their own separate books and separate accountants and all of that. But at the time that this was happening, the cleanups of the funds didn't happen. So I'm still seeing on the balance sheet, I'm seeing the financial, the foundation accounts with balances that they need to be cleaned up. Once I find out enough details about what we did at the time, how we moved the money out of our books, then I can tie those together and zero out those accounts and make them inactive so that they're not going to be on the financial reports anymore, or on the balance sheet in particular anymore. So in terms of the expenses, everything that you look at to compare the prior year this time is pretty much double. And I looked into why is that. Some of it is because most of it, the payroll is the biggest of our expenses here. And because most of our offices were short-staffed, the prior year we had a lot of salary savings. This year we don't have as much. So everything is more than what it was in the prior year. In terms of the percentage, 1 month out of the year, so the percentage should be about 8%. Most everything is under 8% expense-wise, except for the plant operation, which again, with having new positions or filling the positions that were open and vacant in the past, again, that makes sense to me for now, but definitely will be under my radar, and I'm gonna bring back some other reports to you. The good news that I left it for the last is that as of now, we are showing that we have $2.5 million of savings from the prior year. So this also includes the transfer that we had to do, that we did, that was approved by the board for the FY24. Because at some point, we were at the, because of the not doing the PERS, oh, that's another one. I almost forgot about PERS. We are completely up to date with the PERS. Kyra was so kind and knowledgeable that helped us everything through June, was her work. But then starting in July and August, actually for the very latest payroll that we did on September 1st, we already uploaded our report to PERS. Great. So we're doing very in that sense too. But what happened is that the payroll process that we were doing was in terms of expensing, even though the amounts weren't accurate, a lot of times it was less because our percentage weren't right in the system and a lot of things like that. The expensing was happening, but the payments, and we are talking about very large payments that we do, the payments weren't happening. So because of that, expense-wise, we had the majority of expenses happening in the appropriate years, but cash-wise, we didn't have that happening. So we had to spend a bunch of money as we were doing the reports, but some of the expenses. So there was a time that I was a little bit worried about the cash that we have in LGIP with our for the operating funds. So that's why after talking to Paul, we thought that it's appropriate to move the amount of money that was approved by the board for being transferred to general fund. We did that. So this 2.5 that has that. But again, this is for July. And as of today, as we are doing more of the cleanups that we are doing, this amount looks more like $2 million. Still, it's way over what we budgeted. So it's still promising. And most of the savings that we have is because of, again, the open positions that we had in the prior year. So almost my office, for example, we were operating with like half of what we should have. Facilities, another one. And so most of our salaries, most of our savings are salary savings that even though I like the money with my position, but I hope I'm not gonna have that kind of savings anymore because we wanna be able to function well, be fully staffed and be able to do all the good things that is part of our mission and we are trying to do. I think that's all I have to say about the financial report, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are you concerned for like balance of year being fully staffed, that we have a budget mix, or is it still all within budget?
Okay. I'm just gonna repeat the question and make sure that I understood it correctly. So you're talking about the current fiscal year and the staffing. So no, all the positions are already in the budget. And no, I'm not worried about that. I mean, the worst that can happen is that we spend every penny of what we budgeted. In reality, and in my experience, usually it's not the case. We will have people leave, right? They all have seen it. So I don't expect as big of a savings, but I think actually we are gonna have some salary savings again. But 95% of the positions are already budgeted positions, so I'm not worried about that at all.
I think Tamara, I think that was you that asked that question. So yeah, I mean, Sherry hit that right. I mean, we have those positions budgeted. I think, we're going to be entering the budget cycle for 25, 26 pretty soon, even though we're just now starting this one. And that's the one where I'm a little bit more concerned about. So I think and the only reason I say that is, we are adding quite a bit more square footage to this campus. And while we got a lot of support to construct the building through grants and whatever's the maintenance and operation of that facility is on us, right? And we're going to have to be mindful of that when we build out the budget for 25, 26. I do think we'll see an increase in allocation from the state, but I don't, know how much. And while it is true our FTE is growing, I don't think it's going to be enough to cover all of the added expenses. So I think that's where we're going to have to really be mindful is during this budget development cycle to get a sense of what the true cost of operation of TBCC is going to be now.
Don't worry about it. Our student government group's going to bring everybody.
All right.
It's gonna pay off.
It will.
International petting zoo.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that at all. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for Sherry?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've had a great team at the college and great support from the president. So I couldn't have done this by myself. So it was a team effort and I'm happy that I could contribute to that as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, Paul, to you for the president's report.
Awesome. Thank you. First of all, kudos to Chris and Ron for their presentation. Sorry I wasn't there to witness it, but nicely done to both of them. And if I could just quickly comment on about personnel, we do have really good personnel here at TBCC, and it allows us to do some of the great work that we need to do. And we have been incredibly blessed with our recent hires. The versatility of the folks that have come on in facilities with Jason as he builds out his team, and in the business office as Sherry builds out her team. That really, really great people that we're very fortunate to have. So I feel like a lot of things are moving in the right direction with our people. As we start mapping out these processes, I think we're going to see that we're in a really, really good place. So I'm excited by all of that. You also notice that our goal is we're going to have a standing construction report that's going to precede the facilities or the financial report, just like we did today, because as we move through this construction phase, you'll see us zipping through money right and left. And I think tying those two together, the construction, and then Sherry can follow up. Jason can focus on the construction pieces of it, and then Sherry can focus on the finance pieces of it as we keep you informed. I think it'll be helpful to have those next to each other. So that's what we're doing there. You know, I don't really have to say much more about construction. Jason covered it really well, although I will say that we are incredibly lucky also that Jason's on board. He is incredibly knowledgeable with these constructions folks, and you know, he speaks their language. I'm a biologist, and you know, I kind of would be lost without that translator. So I really appreciate his diligence, and Winnaha's been good as well. Karen Spillman, who is our owner's rep with Winnaha. They've just been really good. So we're in good hands, and I really like where we've been going with that. So look forward to seeing those projects proceed. We have had some campus conversations. I've started monthly campus conversations, listening sessions, whatever we want to call them. I think they're either what amounts to the third or the fourth Wednesday or Thursday, somehow in the morning. We'll have one once a month, and sometimes I come with a topic that I want to talk about. Other times it's just wide open for conversation. The goal is to create an environment where people feel comfortable talking with each other in front of each other and with, you know, myself in leadership, so that we can, you know, make this the best place to work and learn. Some of those conversations, as you might have guessed, have centered around parking lately, and the fact that, you know, our employees now are parking down next to PRI. And while it's a beautiful stroll on a day like today, wait till January. You know, I certainly appreciate everybody's willingness to make that walk, and I'm worried about parking as it is with our students coming in the fall, because there's not a lot of parking spaces out there. So you know, I think it's good, and I know it's a sacrifice for folks to do that, and we'll do our best to keep people dry. We've talked a lot about organizational structure, sort of my vision, or I guess what I feel works with my leadership style and the current needs of the college. We spent some time talking about that. When we ultimately reschedule our board retreat, I'll spend more time with you all, kind of laying out a vision for that. I feel I just say, you know, I have a really good team. The folks that are sitting around that table with you support the college and support me really tremendously, and so I feel very fortunate there, and look forward to growing relationships with the leadership team as well. We spent some time talking about some future remodels. We know there was a grand vision at one point for a remodel of the main building. I think given need, if we focus on needs and not wants at this point, I think that we're going to be reimagining what that looks like compared to the exercise that was gone through a few years ago. I think that the building is still beautiful. It's in great shape. A lot of the maintenance, deferred maintenance on that building is going to be picked up as part of the bond expenses if we can stay on budget. So it's going to be a beautiful building that'll last us a good bit of time. We do want to invest in it to make it more functional where we need to, but we'll start that process probably in about 8 months or so, a sort of a visioning session with the campus community about what the needs of that new building are, given the folks that are remaining in, or not the new building, but the existing building, given the folks that are remaining there. So that'll be exciting. And then we've talked about accreditation, and I'll comment a little bit more about that here in just a second. We do have our mid-cycle visit coming up. Oh, it's not a second, it's next on the list. There we go. We do have our Northwest Commission of Colleges and Universities mid-cycle visit. Most of you, well, I don't know how many of you, many of you were on the board during the self-study. That's a much larger year 7 visit where they say, yes, you receive accreditation. Here are the things you need to work on. Here are the things you're doing really well. TBCC under Ross's leadership and my predecessor at the time in the vice president side as well, Teresa Rivenis, they did a great job navigating that with everybody else on campus, and we came through in very good shape there. They do a mid-cycle visit. It's basically a check-in. Since our last visit was virtual, this one will be in person. So the team will be here October 7th and 8th. They focus on things not in as great a depth as they do in the year 7. It's basically just a check-in, and it's time for us to let them know of things we're doing, maybe course corrections we've made since the last visit or anything along those lines. We do need, we would have chatted about this at the retreat. They would like to meet with some board members. They don't need to meet with the entire board. The 7th is a board meeting day. If a few of you wouldn't mind maybe coming in a little bit early or something like that, we could arrange for a meeting with the team with board members. And of course, once we know which of you would like to participate in that, you're all welcome to if you want to, but you don't have to. Then we'll reach out to you with a little bit of prep about what to expect, questions they might ask you, those kinds of things. But it's pretty low key and informative for them, but we just want everybody to be prepared. So if you're interested in that, shoot me and Lori an email, and we'll get you set up for that. It's a good thing to do. We had our Oregon President's Council retreat in Tillamook, August 5th through 7th. Ross was last year the chair of OPC, and as the outgoing chair is where they host the annual retreat. So we went ahead and had it here anyhow, even though he wasn't part of OPC anymore. He did attend a couple of events. It was fun to see him. What I remember most about that was eating. We had great food from the Pelican, the Schooner, great dinner at the Schooner. Pacific was great in catering to us. We did both cheese and ice cream tours at the creamery. We did axe throwing at Excalibur, which if you haven't done yet, I would recommend doing it. I will fess up that I was the only person in attendance that didn't stick an axe in the stupid wall. So I think I have to get some lessons or whatever over there. So that's my goal. We did some kayaking. Thanks to Sydney Elliott, led some tours of Mears Lake. Lots of people really enjoyed that. Our own Ross Tomlin also led a hike out of Cape Lookout, and a lot of folks enjoyed that hike too. I will say, organizing this, Ross pulled a fast one on us and left before all the organizing happened. And thank goodness for Lori for working with some folks at OCCA to organize most of this. It did take a good bit of effort on her part, and so I really appreciate her doing that. We spent some time with the new director for OCCA, Abby Lee. All of you will get a chance to meet her at some point if you haven't yet. I know a couple of you attended some board training this past weekend and met Abby. I think she's a good hire and will be good for the organization. HEC is in the middle of developing a strategic plan. So they gave us kind of a insight into their strategic plan and their strategic plan development. There'll be lots of time for public feedback on their strategic plan moving forward. But that was interesting to hear what they feel is in their work over the next several years. A lot of conversation still about this financial monitoring report. I think I've chatted about that a little bit before with you all. So the universities have been doing this, and each year they have to submit a financial report to HEC, and then HEC drafts a document that's basically a financial report. Community colleges haven't had to do that, and I think we're a little bit different in this regard. I mean, our finances are controlled and approved by you all, the board, and the universities don't have that. We already submit a lot of financial information to HEC anyhow, so I don't know what the real motivation for this is. They said that they wanted this to be something that would allow them to identify or help identify certain financial risk to the colleges, or colleges that were at financial risk, like you get a green card, a yellow card, or a red card, depending upon it. I don't know. I'm still pretty skeptical about it. I'm not really sure of the motive. I don't think that I think this is still back to where they don't trust community colleges to be good stewards of taxpayer money. I think that's one thing. I think also they just feel like they need to monitor us a little bit more. I don't know if you know, but colleges and universities don't have to submit their courses to HEC for approval yet. Community colleges do, right? So there's still this kind of two-tier kind of system, if you will, around higher ed and how HEC treats us. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that. There's a good group with OPC working on this, and we're going to get we'll certainly have some business officers and chief financial officers engaged in the conversation too, but I'll keep you posted about any more of those developments. We do have to have a report though at the end of the year, so there'll be something coming. We're just trying to make sure it's not too drastic right now, because it'll ultimately go to the legislation, and I know that they kind of have their eye on the community colleges. Here's another thing that the legislation has their eye on us about is our funding. Last year, we actually had good amounts of funding. We had $800 million funding last biennium, and that was more than we anticipated, more than we budgeted for, so that's great. We did an exercise to get a sense of what our ask would have to be to maintain current service levels. And basically, because of personnel expenses, that current service level, to maintain current service levels, we would have to increase that budget by about 20%. Now, we know we're not going to get that. The governor has already said no agency can ask for more than 1%, but we also know that's not going to land there either. The OCCA is going to basically put out the ask of $920 million for the next biennium. That's a 15% increase. We'll be okay. Some of the larger colleges will feel some pain with that because it's just not enough for them to stay at current service level. This comes at a time when, in the legislation, and HEC is saying you have fewer FTE than you had 2 years ago or than you had last year, so why do you need more money? The issue they don't get is that we have far more students than we had last year and the year before, right? More of our students are increasingly more part-time over the past couple years. So we have more students to serve, right? And not only that, they're more needy, right? We're not, we don't get the necessarily the privileged student like some of our university counterparts get. So I think that there's a little disconnect there. And so that's some of the lobbying that we'll have to do with OCCA to get that funding that we need. But it'll be a busy year for us, right? As a long session. So I'll be asking some of you to go to the Capitol again and work to lobby for some of this funding. And then working on the work plan for Oregon President's Council, some of the things that are important, still looking at developmental education reform, reconnecting adult students to college. Cybersecurity is a big area, as you heard Ron talk about before, even with our issues with fraudulent students. That's only going to, the risk for those things is only going to grow. So we need to be able to put some strategies in place to mitigate those risks. Nursing program, second cohort, application windows still open till October 1. I don't have the numbers of applicants from that. I don't know if Peter knows or not, but I know.
I met with Tiffany Silver and Alex Tripp today. We've got about 8 so far, so we're optimistic.
Good. And with some time left, we'll get some more. Our minimum number that we really wanted was 8, and it wouldn't kill us if we only got 8. That's one cohort, or one batch of them, if you will, for as far as teacher-student ratios go. So So that's good. Thanks, Peter. Talked a little bit already about tech, CTE, workforce development, so I don't need to belabor that point there anymore. I'll chat more with you about that at the next retreat or whenever we get that rescheduled. I did want to mention one thing because I didn't get to see you at the retreat today. We do have our final numbers for 23-24 FTE. I know that's something that we're interested in, and I'll expand more on this in our retreat, but we closed the books last year at 557 FTE. That is almost a 9% increase over the prior year. That is an all-time high for TBCC, but will be broken next year probably, or this current year. So we feel good about that. A lot of that growth was, in part because of nursing and some other programs that are making a comeback. Excuse me. We do know that there's some work we need to do on the CTE side where we're losing some students. So we'll get that number a little bit solid, but I felt really good about that. And again, that helps our base level funding ultimately. So that feels pretty good. Just a couple other things here. We got a couple observances I think that are worth mentioning for us this month. The month of September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I think that this is something that's very, very important to me, and I think a lot of folks recognize that 2023, so last year, suicide attempts and deaths were at an all-time high. There were more than 1.6 million attempted suicides, and there were more than 50,000 deaths caused by suicides. And in fact, to the point where among 15 to 34-year-olds, this is our student body, right? That was the second leading cause of death, just behind accidental death. So it is an issue that hits. Most of us may know someone who's fallen to this. And I, like many, believe that with good education, training, and care and recognition, that a good bit of those 50,000 could have been prevented, right? So to that end, we are offering some suicide awareness training. I just saw Kelly McKeon sent something out today. I didn't realize it had been scheduled already, or that they had scheduled it. We have given the QPR training before. This is the question, persuade, and refer training. It's really just basic training for, first offers of help to people when you think there might be some reason to offer the help, as opposed to ignoring what you think is might be some kind of a sign or signal. So if any of you are interested in that, I encourage you to attend that training with us. It is Thursday evening at 5 o'clock. I believe it's probably right there in the room you're in. And I plan on trying to get together some more specific training for some of our more frontline workers that are in touch with students more regularly, right? And it's not just students. I mean, these are employees as well, right? And people in our lives that we need to be aware about. So again, take note of that. I think that's important that we try to add this to our sort of ways that we care for people, right? The other observance that's relevant, I think, to TBCC and our community also is it's Hispanic Heritage Month, begins September 15th. It actually spans 2 months. It's September 15th to October 15th. Bear in mind that the Latinx community is the second largest ethnic group in Tillamook County. It is the fastest growing group in Tillamook County. And I do anticipate that TBCC will become a predominantly a Hispanic serving institution sometime within the next 3 to 5 years. That we hit that designation once we hit about 25, well, at least 25% of our FTE being from individuals that identify as Hispanic or Latin. So that's something worth considering. We're right now at about 21% or so. Been flat there for a little while. I don't know if that number's crept up or not over the past year or so, but we're close to being there. And I think that's something that we want to be able to recognize, be ready for when, and more ready for than we currently are to serve those students. Some dates there for you to take a look at. Next week, lots going on campus if you want to pop by for anything. September 17th is new student orientation. That was a blast last year. I hope it's as good this year. It was really a lot of fun. So stop by for that if you're around and want to. You're also free to drop in for any or all of in-service that we have. I've listed the times there for you. I've just put the finishing touches on the agenda today, so I can share that out with you all tomorrow once we finalize that as well, just so you got an idea of what we'll be talking about there for that. And then next Friday, we'll have a barbecue. I'll try not to burn the place down. Came close a couple years ago. So September 20th, if you want to come out for a barbecue. Jason got us a new grill, so we're in good shape. And then just a couple things to keep on mind there. We do have a HEC commissioner coming to visit with us on December 7th. That's board meeting day. I've invited them to attend our board meeting. I hope they'll attend for a little bit there, and I can I'll fill you in on more on that, what to expect for that, as we get closer to that. And then our next board meeting is October 7th at 5 p.m. So just to end with some gratitude I have for some folks. The fair was a big event. It's a big event for the county. It's a big event for TBCC also. Britta's team, Mia and Saya and Britta, take a lot of the responsibility of organizing that, the table, volunteering, and all of that. The student services really pick up a lot of the volunteer time, so I thank them for doing that. They also provided on-campus service during Fair Week. We had people working remote wherever possible during Fair Week just because of the commotion and the lack of parking and things like that. I would also like to recognize Tom Wolf. Tom is an IT coordinator for us. Tom did a really good job helping us providing support for OPC over at the PRI building. So I got a lot of gratitude for Tom. And lastly, Erin McCarley. Erin is our accreditation liaison officer. She has had a lot on her plate. It's a bad time of the year for her anyhow, with a lot of the end of the year reporting. And then put on top of that the fact that, we asked her to organize and write our mid-cycle report. So Erin, thank you. Thank you for that. And it was submitted. We'll just be waiting for the team to come. And so that's my report. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to expand on anything. Otherwise, I'll fill in some of these blanks around some of these things when we reschedule the retreat in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions?
Can we talk about that retreat?
Yeah, let's do.
Have it?
Yeah. And any questions about Paul's report before we move on to talk about rescheduling the retreat? Let's talk about it just for a minute, because I imagine that most of the staff will be involved in it, will also be here in this room right now. So let's see if we can pull up our calendars quickly. How about, I was thinking, next month at the board retreat, but that's not going to work out, or the board meeting because of the accreditation visit. So how about the following Monday, the 14th of October?
Next week.
Oh, no, October.
14th of October.
Columbus Day.
Indigenous People Day.
Thank you.
Good.
Works for me.
Simon, yeah, because we wouldn't have a board meeting, so we'd be done by 3 or 4. Is that correct? Okay, because I have something at 6.
It works.
I can't do it that day.
14th. What would be the hours, the time? 10 to 4 like it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we look for, Shannon said she can't make it that day. Should we look for alternatives?
About the 21st.
15th. I can't do it on the 21st.
Doesn't have to be a Monday.
What works for you, Shannon? Could we do it on Tuesday, the 15th?
Yes, I have a large presentation on Monday, the 15th, or the 14th.
I can't do the 15th.
16th.
16th.
Nope. Never on a Wednesday for me.
Okay, 7. Following the
17th. How about the 17th?
Done.
17th.
Thursday.
October 17th.
What are the hours?
10 to
Well,
4?
could be 10 to 4, but we could also change it.
Change it. We start earlier.
We could start earlier.
Yeah,
Start earlier.
You can't.
Since we're not having a board meeting.
You can't.
I cannot on the 17th.
You can't do it at all, you mean?
Well, we're waiting 2 months for physical therapy.
How about the 18th?
That's.
Make it a Friday.
Okay.
Unless you guys wanna do a retreat, then come build a meeting.
Let's go back up to the second week of
Second week.
Second, what that, September, I mean, or the last week of September. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Monday the 23rd, I think.
That's the day school starts.
You know, that's why.
That's the day school
Yeah, that would
starts.
not be good. No. Let's stay in October.
Thursday the 26th.
Of September?
Yeah, I had, yeah, that week for me is totally
Yeah.
free.
It's just,
For a haircut.
we can't.
Or maybe.
I can.
Oh, 25th. and 26th.
26th. Nope.
That's a Thursday. 7th is Friday.
No, I'm out of town.
What month are you all looking at right now?
I know, I'm confused. I'm lost.
September now.
How about October 1st?
Or 27th of September.
How about October 1st?
That's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Sounds good to me.
Shannon?
Yes.
Yes.
October 1st.
What day? October 1st?
Tuesday, October 1st.
I love that.
And it would-
What we, your hours that you
Nine-
wanted for
9 to
that?
3. Could we do 9 to whatever,
Well,
or what?
9 to 3?
Or is that?
That's awesome.
yes. I chair a meeting on Tuesday mornings at 8, but I'll just,
Oh, we could-
Doug can take it over at 9.
Or we could do it 9:30.
Okay, 9.
30 to
9:30.
That's a candidate forum at PC. And so as long as there's a remote option to kind of.
Candidate forum where?
PC.
What's that?
In person
Okay.
and not, because Doug also, I think, is hosting that.
Gotcha. Yes.
But you're done by 9:30.
But I don't, just because I need to go do something in person for an hour, doesn't mean I should, like. I think that person.
Okay.
9:30, we're saying?
To 3:30,
Okay.
October 1st?
Did you have to
Yes.
send the sandwiches back?
Yeah.
No, I
They're still in my car. I'll bring them for you.
Oh, thanks.
It's tuna fish. Is that all right? I mean, it'll still be.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
9:30.
Okay.
Sit in the car for stay.
All right, October 1st, 2024, 9:30 to 3:30.
To what, 2:30?
3:30.
3:30, okay.
Room 214, 215, and Zoom.
That'd be great.
Works for me.
Do we have a way to check to see
I'll
if the
check
room's
it out.
available?
I'm sure we can make it work.
I don't want to go back, because there's a remote option.
We're actually remote.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we could have a remote option for this for sure, but I wonder if the candidate forum will have a remote option. Because I'd love
Well,
to watch that.
I don't want to do that.
But we could watch.
Candidate forum. I'm running for the PD commissioner.
Oh,
So
I didn't realize you were
You're
a
the-
candidate.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay,
there.
gotcha.
I can't miss it for that.
Okay.
Of course you can.
Oh, that's for the November.
Do you want to pick a different
Okay.
day then?
Well, I
What about the 30th?
Well, how long,
September 30th?
When's the forum? What time's the forum?
Monday, September 30th.
No, Monday, oh, yeah.
What time's the
She
forum?
can't do Monday. I think it's in there.
Monday for you, Mary
Monday
Kate,
was
does that work?
No.
Okay. Well, there's just, it's gonna be very difficult.
Does this work for you, Mary?
Come up with a full day that is here first.
The first works for me.
First of
Okay.
October.
All right.
Okay, so you walked back to September 30th.
No,
But did you?
no.
No,
October.
October 1st, 9:30 to 3:30.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Sweet.
That was bad.
That was the hardest thing all day.
Okay. All right, any other board member discussion items? Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn at 6:24.
Barn burner. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Oh, feel better.
I will.
Better, Paul.
You just,
We're out.
Most.
yeah.
Good luck running for the,
Yeah. And you are.
It's been a very good.
Oh, so much.
Sorry.
I think